Good morning. This is exciting. I'm honored to be here with you all for the first press briefing with Harris for President and the Democratic Convention here in Chicago. You're going to hear from our Executive Director of the convention, Alex Hornbrook. You're going to hear from Senator Chris Coons and Congressman Cedric Richmond. Both Senator Coons and Cedric Richmond are co-chairs to the Harris for President campaign. But before we get into the business of this briefing, I want to give you guys a brief rundown of some of the voices you're going to hear from tonight. Every day we'll give you a preview of some of the voices that you'll hear from, and later in today we'll provide you with the full program and a few surprises along the way. These are voices that represent our broad and diverse coalition and the issues that matter most to voters, the same issues that Vice President Harris has spent her entire career fighting on behalf of. This is not an exhaustive list, but to name a few voices for tonight, we'll have UAW President Shawn Fain, we'll have Congresswoman Alexandria Cortez-Masto, or Ocasio-Cortez, Secretary Hillary Rodham Clinton, Congressman Jamie Raskin, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who is also a campaign co-chair, Congresswoman Grace Meng, the men and women that have been subjected to cruel and dangerous abortion bans under Donald Trump, and have bravely told their stories. Everyday Americans like Amanda and Josh Zarowski, Caitlin Joshua, Haley Duvall, and elected officials like Governor Andy Beshear, who had the courage to stand up for what is right. You'll also hear from Senators Warnock and Senator Chris Coons before we hear from President Biden later in the evening. Again, these are just some of the voices that you'll hear from tonight and throughout the week. And our convention is so much bigger than who. This convention is about who we're fighting for and what we're fighting for. And so tonight we're going to talk a lot about freedom, and you're going to hear that from the speakers throughout the evening, which is a perfect introduction to the Executive Director of the convention, Alex Hornbrook. Alex has worked tirelessly over the last 17 months to put this convention together. I think we're all seeing the fruits of that labor and really excited about what we're going to see tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alex.
Thank you, Quentin. Good morning. Welcome to Chicago for all those of you who came in from out of town, and thank you for joining us for the first day of the 2024 Democratic National Convention. Over the last year plus, as Quentin referenced, we've been building the stage, literally and figuratively, here in Chicago for Democrats to tell our story directly to the American people. Tonight's theme, For the People, will showcase Kamala Harris's commitment to fighting for everyday Americans, because at its core, the Harris-Walz ticket is a ticket for the people. And we'll also be honoring, of course, President Joe Biden. We would not be here without him. His historic record of accomplishment with Vice President Harris by his side is unmatched by any presidential administration in modern history, and it's going to be our honor to spotlight and showcase the the accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration, as well as the bold vision for the future that Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and Democrats up and down the ticket will be fighting for this November. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Senator Chris Coons.
When we gathered for our last convention 4 years ago, it was virtual because we were in the middle of a terrible pandemic caused by the mishandling of the previous president. We were in the middle of an economic crisis caused by that badly mishandled pandemic. And then just 2 weeks before Vice President Harris and President Biden were sworn in, there was an assault on our democracy at the Capitol. So it's important to look back for a moment and realize that when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris came into office, they inherited one of the worst possible situations: public health, economics, democracy. Joe Biden made it clear that he was running for president to restore the soul of our nation. And tonight, 4 years later, it's worth our taking a few minutes to reflect on just how much progress Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made. As someone who spent 36 years in the United States Senate, Joe Biden understood how to build coalitions, how to work across the aisle, how to deliver for the American people. And he and his trusted Vice President, Kamala Harris, got passed, and he signed into law, more consequential legislation than any president in my lifetime. I could take 10, maybe 20, maybe 30 minutes and go over the whole list, but rebuilding bridges and broadband, restoring manufacturing, showing our competitors around the world that our democracy can work, passing the most consequential legislation about gun violence, about community mental health, about investing in our veterans, and in reducing prescription drug prices. Just this past week, there was a great event where Joe and Kamala announced the specific reductions. I don't know if you watch the evening news, I do. Xarelto, Eliquis, Jardiance, ever heard of these things? There's ads for them constantly, $500 a month to $200 a month. It's going to save $6 billion for the American taxpayers. It's going to save $1.5 billion out of pocket for seniors. $35 a month for insulin, which diabetics like members of my family rely on critically and have cost out the wazoo for decades. $2,000 a year out-of-pocket cap. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have fought tirelessly for the American middle class to reduce costs. And his trusted Vice President, Kamala Harris, is the right person to carry forward that fight. And this week is about celebrating what it means to be for the people. Vice President Harris has chosen in Tim Walz a running mate who has a coach, a congressman, a sergeant, a veteran, a governor, has a record of fighting for the middle class. And I'm excited that we're kicking off our campaign by celebrating just how much Joe Biden got done at home and abroad. Standing up to Putin's aggression in Ukraine, not just strengthening, but expanding NATO, rebuilding incredible creative partnerships throughout the Indo-Pacific and with the Global South to make us safer and stronger. He's got a longer record of accomplishment than we could possibly celebrate tonight, but I'm grateful to play some small part in doing that. The contrast couldn't be sharper. Donald Trump, as president, talked about rebuilding our infrastructure. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris actually got it done. Joe Biden talked about restoring manufacturing and got it done, where Donald Trump just talked. Reducing prescription drug prices and strengthening and defending our nation's access to affordable health care. Donald Trump said he would get it done. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did it. It's an incredible record given how tight the margins were. On our best days, we had 50 folks in our caucus willing to vote for Joe Biden's agenda in the Senate. I think it was a 5-seat margin in the House. And as someone who led the Office of Public Engagement, former chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, and the best congressional pitcher in our history, I'm going to hand it over to Congressman Cedric Richmond to further expound on how we've got a lot to celebrate tonight, and we've laid a great foundation for not just a successful convention, but for a campaign that is going to move Kamala Harris and Tim Walz forward as our next president, vice president. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I'm actually trying to stay on script, but like the Senator said, there's so much we could talk about. There's so many accomplishments we could talk about in the Biden-Harris administration. But today, I want to focus on why we're here, and that's for this convention. And that is to highlight the contrast between the Harris-Walz agenda and the Donald Trump agenda. One agenda is about the people. One agenda is about one person. And so tonight, you will also hear from the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden, who accomplished more in 4 years than most presidents do in a full term. Like he has through his entire 50-plus year service to this country as a public servant, every step of the way during his presidency, President Biden put the people first, and Vice President Harris. It was never about politics. It was never about profit. It was never about party. It was always about the people. How do we wake up every day and make the people's lives better? And I think that that is the common thread that ran throughout the White House, ran throughout the Senate, ran throughout the House. And that's the key. And so if there's any stark difference we take away today, it is that everything we do is for the people. And you will hear that common thread consistently through the night. You'll also hear the president tonight talk about the successes of the Biden-Harris administration. And I think it's important for him to answer those age-old questions of, what have you done for me lately? Why bother to actually go out and vote? And so he has to remind people of the successes that the Biden-Harris agenda had. The fact that so many people came out in historic numbers the last election and put them into office. But what did they get for it? And that's what you'll hear tonight. And he'll go down the list And I think you will see a very proud president that throughout his entire career has always made sure that he was thinking about the people. And we're excited about that. The last thing I'll say about the president and what he'll say tonight and what he will show tonight is one of my favorite quotes about politics. Politicians worry about the next election. Statesmen worry about the next generation. And it was a statesman who came off the sideline 4 years ago to beat the worst president in the history of the United States, a person who posed the biggest threat to the United States. And there's a statesman who passed and who will pass the baton on to Vice President Kamala Harris to continue to put this country first. And so here in Chicago, we're united. We're ready to answer the divisive, backwards vision of Donald Trump with a positive, joyful vision for the future. Now, Vice President Harris and Tim Walz stands ready to carry the torch forward as we look toward the future and fight against those who would divide us and drag us into the past. This is about tomorrow. This is about making sure that tomorrow is better than yesterday and that all the tomorrows to come are better than the yesterdays that we've had. And so if you look at where we were 4 years ago, and the senator touched on it, 54% of schools closed, businesses shuttered, people dying. You couldn't even go to funerals. You couldn't celebrate the lives of your loved ones. You couldn't visit them in the hospital to say goodbye. That's what the country was 4 years ago, before we had a president that came and a vice president that came in very intentional about righting those wrongs. But under President Biden, let's go back to Trump. I'm going to spend just another second on what we inherited. Crime and unemployment were up. Trump cut taxes for billionaires and corporations and made those in the middle class and those aspiring to be in the middle class pay for it. We saw an insurrection at the Capitol, led and encouraged by that same unhinged former president. And I want you all to remember, Senator and I, we were in the building. It wasn't peaceful protesters. It was an insurrection. And if you have any doubts of how it started, go to the debate when President Trump said to the Proud Boys, stand by, stand back and stand by. Then he summoned them to DC on January 6th. Then spoke that morning and said, we're going to go to the Capitol and you need to stop the steal, which cost us the lives of law enforcement agents and made us the mockery of the world that we no longer had peaceful transition of power. And now he wants us to hand him back the reins of this nation as he runs on a Project 2025 agenda to ban abortion nationwide, jack up costs on the middle class by thousands of dollars, and fire civil servants and replace them with Trump loyalists. But the American people know better. They elected President Biden and sent Donald Trump packing in 2020, and they will reject him again in 2024. And they will send Vice President Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to the White House. The American people want a leader who will bring us forward, not back, who will lead us into the future instead of trafficking in the politics of division. America is ready for President Harris and Vice President Walz. Joe Biden showed this country what real leadership looks like. It's about getting things done for the American people, results, progress, doing the right thing simply because it's the right thing. And now Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have united our party around their vision to lead us into the future, into a bright future. I know Vice President Harris. I know when Joe Biden was choosing her to be his running mate. I've been by her side as she fought for the American people from the White House. I've had the honor of seeing her work up close. And what I've seen from her isn't just a candidate who's prepared to lead, but a candidate who's prepared to win. With Kamala Harris leading the ticket and Governor Walz as her running mate, they will do just that. They will win this election, but more importantly, they will bring this country together and bring us towards better days. With that, I will turn it over and we'll have a little Q&A.
We do have a surprise, so we're going to welcome our convention chair, Mignon Moore.
The one and only Mignon Moore.
Good morning, everybody. And I will say I apologize for the delay. I think we all are going in different directions. Thank you, Senator Kuhn, for being here. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Cedric. I was listening to Cedric behind the stage, and I said I was going to start off by saying I want to say everything that Cedric said, because he said it all. And I tell you, I can't think of a better partner to have had in this journey than Cedric, so thank you so much for all you're doing. Alex, of course, I'm sure everybody has heard from him this morning, but he has been the executive director, and we have pioneered this journey in many ways. I mean, we started out, as you know, with President Biden, who we all love, we all adore. We look forward to seeing him tonight. We are going to celebrate him, celebrate all the accomplishments that he has given us. So we thank you for being here to even just report on that. I am here to just welcome you to the convention, welcome you to all that we're going to be doing this week. It's going to be exciting. It is going to be, some of the kinks are still being worked out, so we hope that you will give us grace and patience, but we know that this is a good time for America. And as Cedric has already said, the contrast between the Democrats and the Republicans will be very stark, and you will hear from some incredible speakers this week. They will tell you their stories, but they're also going to tell you the story of the Harris-Walz new ticket. And they're going to be dynamic. They're going to talk about the future, but they're also going to build on what the Biden-Harris administration has already accomplished. I look forward to the week. I mean, I even look forward to hearing all the spectacular speakers. Tonight you'll hear from Secretary Clinton. As you know, she was a pioneer for Senator Harris, now Vice President Harris, now the nominee. And so she's broke a lot of glass, and we stand on her shoulders, and she will bring us her vision of what it means to run as a nominee, and she will certainly embrace the vision of the Biden-Harris administration. So with that, I will stop. Oh, Quentin, welcome. We send all our friends. They have arrived, and we're happy to see you all. With that, I know you all can take questions.
Got me. All right, we have time for a few questions. This is the press team over to this side, so when we don't get to every question, you can bug us. We'll go to Chicago's own Lynn Sweet first.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Any of you, perhaps Mignon, could you please just let me do this quick. I would like you, if you could, expand on, preview a little more of what Hillary Rodham Clinton will say at this historic moment where we may be electing the first female president. That hasn't been discussed much, but this was something that was so much a part of the Clinton campaign. Perhaps Senator Kuhn, and I know we had a lot, just tell us on how Biden is reflecting on his mood at this point in history, what led to him. Don't mean to rehash anything, but there's a lot going on. If you could sum it up. And then, is it really right that he's speaking at 10 o'clock? And if so, isn't that a little bit past prime time? Thank you.
Well, as you know, in 2016, Secretary Clinton won the popular vote. She ran an incredible race, and she shattered a lot of glass for many people. And I would even go back further than even Secretary Clinton. I would start with Fannie Lou Hamer, who was denied a seat at a Democratic convention. So you propel that forward, and you look at a Hillary Rodham Clinton. She has paved the way. And I want to also level set. She has been an incredible partner to Vice President Harris. They have a great friendship. You know, they're on speed dial with each other. And I suspect, I have not read her speech, so I should say that for the record, but I do know that she probably will talk a lot about what it means at this moment to have the second female and a female of color running. But what our responsibility is to that too as well, because it's not easy. And I say this all the time, We're trying to change and shift the mindset of people to see a woman as commander-in-chief. And Hillary Clinton has served as Secretary of State. She has served as our first nominee. So she has a world view of this. And I believe that, I don't know why I want to keep calling her Senator Harris, because she is so many things. But Vice President Harris also has a world view of what that means. And I think you will see that coming together this week.
I'll just say briefly, the last few times I've had a chance to be with him, to speak with him, President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden are optimistic. They're focused on the future, on things that matter greatly to the American people, that they're determined to get done in the remaining 5 months. The Cancer Moonshot, there was just a wonderful event at Tulane that Cedric was at with them. I had a chance to be with the president in Austin as he was talking about the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, and he made some bold proposals about court reform. There's work to do abroad and at home. He's not just the leader of the free world, he's actually leading the free world. There's a war in Ukraine and a determination on his part and many of us to make sure that Ukraine gets the resources to win this fight. So whether it's the celebratory and positive event he just did with the vice president about prescription drug price reduction, or it's campaigning, no one loves to campaign like Joe Biden. You will see him campaigning with some joy and some lift in Pennsylvania and around the country, and focusing on the job that's yet to be done, both for the remaining 5 months and then going forward.
We will come back with final schedule.
It's 10 p.m. Central, and it will be in prime time, Lynn.
Lynn, we're sending the final schedule after this. So,
Yes.
next question. Let's go to Blue Coat. Can you name yourself an outlet? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Igor Nemushin. I'm a correspondent from RIA News Agency DC Bureau. So I wonder if there are any talks, or what is the part of the agenda that will be dedicated to war in Ukraine and to fighting with Russia during this DNC? And if yes, then when should we expect such kind of conversations? Thank you.
You will see on the program, woven through the entire 4 days, obviously the president will probably cover a lot of that tonight in his speech. I'm sure the vice president will cover it in her speech. We have on Thursday, I believe, or it's Wednesday or Thursday, we have a full foreign policy section, and you will hear a lot about Ukraine. You'll hear a lot about all the things that we are working towards, finding solutions. Gaza will be a part of those conversations as well. Mm-hmm.
All right, Brittany Shepard, ABC.
Like very Wendy Williams of you. Thank you very much for doing this, guys. I want to dig in a little bit more to the preview of Biden's speech. I know we're going to hear a lot about the Biden record, but I want to know, can you detail a little bit more about how he plans to pass the torch, more fulsomely endorse Harris? Like, what will that part of the speech really look like, sound like?
Well, I won't give away the speech. The president and I, we may look alike, but I can't go that far. What I will tell you is that I think what he's going to say, in part, is that he picked Kamala Harris to be his running mate because she was brilliant, because she had experience as a prosecutor, experience as an attorney general. She was an effective and forceful U.S. senator. So when he picked her to be a real governing partner. And then through the years, she was that governing partner. She cast, like the senator said, so many tie-breaking votes, but she was also a person who held the Senate together in terms of that small minority, small majority, so that they could get historic things done. And so I think he's going to make sure that people understand he picked her because she was great, she was a great partner, and that she's going to be a great next president of the United States.
We'll take one final question.
Lindsay Hughes, CNN affiliate. Just have a logistical question. Thank you. Oh, thanks for doing that. When will we have the schedule just for broadcasting purposes for the Biden speech? And then also, will we see the vice president in the hall listening to the president's speech and then on stage as well after?
No, I think I was going to say the same thing that, that Kevin did, which is that I think we have a slightly more detailed schedule coming out shortly after this, but there are also some elements that'll be released day by day for your planning purposes. I think the team right behind you can fill you in on that after we wrap up here. Thanks.
We are going to get as many excerpts every single day as we can. Goodbye, everybody. We will try our best every day. Yeah, that is the hope. Bye, guys.